All right, so I know we went through this for those who were here last week. I think we stopped here, right, with the boils?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, oh my God. When you do it, the top part cuts off.
Oh, for Zoom,
So what was before athlete's foot?
before athlete's foot. Hey, guys, hey, please. Hey, Patrick. Shh. We can't have interruptions through the whole class. All right, it's just, please, it has to stop. I'm not talking about you, I'm not saying you, but it's just, please.
All right.
Thank you. All right, so you want before athlete's foot, this one alopecia? Okay, anything else you had questions on about the notes we had previously? Okay. All right, so we're talking about skin disorders, and we've went through several. We'll go through more today. And I know these are a little bit gross, a little bit grosser, just to warn you. Some do get pretty intense, but yeah, it's just, I think skin disorders are really disturbing. I think for me, especially, I don't know, there's something about them that just really are hard to see. But it's important to learn about them, so we have to go through them. So a boil is caused by a bacterial infection, the staph infection. But it's a staph infection that's below your skin in your hair follicle. So when we say staph infection, it could be infections at different locations in your body. But for a boil, it's a staph infection which is in your hair follicle. So staph is a bacteria that can be hard to treat, but other times it's easily treatable. So there's different kinds of strains of staph. Some are not very treatable, and that's MRSA or VRSA. Others are more treatable. Just depends on the kinds you have. But about 20% of people have staph in their nose just naturally. At any given moment, you're gonna have 1 in 5 people who have staph in their nose. And that's a leading cause of food poisoning. People who have runny noses and aren't careful about washing their hands or sneezing onto food and other people eat it, that is the leading cause of food poisoning. Yeah. So people are not careful about, they blow their nose, they don't wash their hands, or they sneeze or they cough in the food and then it just sits there. So staph is pretty common in the nose, and in the nose, it's not going to be a problem, but if it goes out of the nose to other places of the body, it can become very problematic. So it just depends on where it is. But usually within the nose, it's not going to be harmful to you. Unless you have a cut or something, then it can become a problem. So boils are bumpy, pus-filled bumps. That's what an abscess is. So if you have an abscess, that's what the name means. And they're around a hair follicle. So they're very tender and painful. Some of them are below the surface, others bubble to the top. The infection can spread, causing a larger boil to form, or even go into the bloodstream, which can become life-threatening in that case. So bacterial infections, if they're localized, are going to be painful, but not life-threatening. But if they become systemic, which means they get into your blood system and go throughout your body, it's an emergency and you can die from that. So it's important that you do have staph infections or boils or things like that, that they are treated very quickly, because if they spread, it's going to be a very serious situation. A carbuncle is a larger boil. Usually it's several boils put together. So it's just boils next to each other.
Is there any other thing that looks exactly like that middle picture? The one on the left? Yeah.
This one right here?
Yeah, is there anything else that's kind of like?
I mean, lots of things. I mean, it could be poison ivy looks like that. Other kinds of staph infections look like that.
Acne.
Acne can look like that.
I even feel like bug bites can look like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like ant bites can look like that. Spider bites. But do you have something like that you're not sure what it is?
It looks like that every time. And I just pop it.
It sounds like acne. Like, does it itch?
No,
Is it hurt?
no.
Yeah, probably what it is. Yeah. Acne can be anywhere in the body. I mean, usually it stays in the face, but it doesn't have to just be in the face. It can be other places too. So it's probably what that is, if it's recurring. And then it goes away,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just-
that's probably what it is.
How long does the boil have to stay for it to be like,
To be what?
how long would it have to stay in your skin for it to be like?
Oh, it really just depends. I mean, it's just gonna be a couple of weeks before it becomes systemic.
Would you notice,
Oh yeah, you would know. You'd be in a lot of pain.
just like, okay, so it'd be really painful.
Yeah, it'd be very
Okay, good.
very
Like,
painful.
if it's just like a pimple.
Oh yeah, no. It's not gonna be like a pimple. No, boils hurt a lot. You're gonna know you have one. Yeah, you won't, yeah, you're gonna know all the time. I mean, it's gonna really hurt. So it won't be a surprise to you. And you'll have a fever too. You'll have a really high fever if it becomes a problem.
Wait, how can it
So-
cause a fever?
Do what?
How can it cause a fever?
Oh, it's an infection. It's a bacterial infection. So the body's gonna be fighting it. And that causes a fever when it fights it. So a boil looks like this below the skin. It's around the hair follicle and it becomes infected around here. And then the infection just spreads. And you can see right here that it just destroys the hair follicle. This is white pus right here, which comes to the surface. Carbuncle looks like this, where you have more than one follicle infected and it can spread. The bloodstream is below here. And so if it goes down into this area, it can then become systemic. So beginning boil, later stage boil, carbuncle.
That's not something that you can just pinch out here and you have to get like.
Well, you can't, I mean, it depends on how bad it is. Small ones, you can. The problem is that you're spreading the infection if you do it on your own. So it definitely is better to go to a doctor who can do it, professionally with antibiotics. Because if you do that on your own, you might spread the infection and cause a larger boil, like a carbuncle, if you don't do it properly. But yeah, doctors will do that. If it's a large boil, they will pop it for you in the doctor's office.
What is the bacteria eating?
Basically anything is fine, any cells. I mean, hair follicles, skin cells, anything that's around, it'll eat. It eats each other too, and bacteria eats other bacteria. So just anything it can find.
Do you avoid this like just by staying clean?
You really, that definitely can help, but you can be very clean and still get these. So it doesn't mean that you have bad hygiene if you get boils. You can just be prone to it through your genes, your environment. So everybody has different kinds of bacteria in their skin. Some might have more bacteria that's bad for them that can eat their skin. It's just how their environment is, where they live, or it could just be their genes. So it's not always your hygiene, but definitely good hygiene can help prevent them, but it can't ensure you won't ever get one. You can see right here that they can become open or they pop or they can stay below the skin. This is an oil gland right here. You always have oil glands next to the hair follicle. And actually this is acne. I'm sorry, this is not a boil. A boil would be down here. This acne, though, it would be an infection of the sebaceous gland, which is your oil gland right here. So acne and a boil do look very similar, but the difference is where they're located. So acne is an inflammation of the sebaceous gland right here. A boil would be inflammation of your hair follicle down here. And this little muscle right here that makes goosebumps. So when you're cold, this is activated and it raises your hair. So every little hair has a muscle that pulls it upward. A cyst is a small cluster of cells that form a sac. Usually it's full of water, but it can be full of other things too. But generally it's going to be clear fluid, mostly in the sac. It can be a small bubble like this. We can see it. It can be anywhere in your skin. It can be below your skin. It can be in organs.
What do you do?
It depends. Usually they're harmless. They don't really do anything. So if they're painful, you can get them removed or popped. But if they're not, you can keep them there. I mean, if it's not bothering you. But they can go away on their own.
What's the thing that comes sometimes on your eyes? The sty.
Oh, a sty. Mm-hmm. And those usually go away pretty quickly.
They just relax.
Yeah.
What causes this stuff?
It's a bacterial infection. Cysts can form inside your organs too. A common area would be the ovaries. Ovarian cyst, you can see a normal ovary on this side, but a cyst can get quite large, golf ball size, even larger, grapefruit size. So it can be quite painful. But those usually can be, they can pop on their own or through surgery, they can be removed. But they do get bigger and bigger until they pop usually when it's inside an organ. And then outside your skin surface, they usually pop on their own just over time. So they usually are temporary. They usually don't last for too long, but they can be quite painful. Dermatitis, skin inflammation. So it's a wide range of things that can be dermatitis. It's just a general term that means anytime your skin has red inflammation, usually it's itching or burning. It can be an allergy. Usually you see redness on your skin, sometimes swelling. Itching is common.
Was that other picture not, stretch marks?
No, those aren't stretch marks. I mean, they can look like stretch marks. They can look similar, but a stretch mark would be like more of a permanent thing, where like a scar. But dermatitis is more like a rash where it goes away. They can have skin lesions, which would basically are just bumps. You can see right here. They can be raised bumps, or they can stay flat. Oh, sorry. So there's a wide range of causes of dermatitis. A common one would be poison ivy. Did y'all get that down? Okay.
Yeah.
So poison ivy would be a common form of dermatitis. And just to show you what they look like, look out for leaves of 3. That's a good way to know that you might have seen poison ivy or poison oak. So do you see it? That's marijuana. Yeah. Yeah, well, marijuana can have 5 leaves. It's not always, but
Wait, isn't it like 5 points though on the leaf or something like that?
some marijuana plants can have 5, or others have more.
No, poison ivy.
Oh, poison ivy?
No,
5 points? Where do you see 5 points?
like 1, 2. But maybe there's different points under her.
Oh, on the leaf itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see. I never thought about that, but it looks like that there could be. Yeah, I guess like,
Most poison
yeah.
ivy, like actually look like that.
yeah.
Or are there different?
Like, I mean, there can be younger poison ivy plants or more mature poison ivy plants. So the leaves can look a bit different as it matures. Like usually when it's younger, the leaves are more like they don't have these ridges on them. They don't have these points on them when they're younger. They're more of just like oval shape. But as they mature, they look more like this. So I see what you're saying. Is that what you're saying too about the 5 points and not just 5 leaves?
No, I think
But look out, again, if you see any plant that has leaves that are grouped in 3s, that usually is not a good plant. You want to stay away from that plant. You know, the saying is leaves of a 3, leave them be, just because they usually do contain some kind of poison that's going to irritate you.
No, that's the dumbest thing. Yeah, shut up. You just made that up right now. Because of 5 make you die. 5 make you die.
Oh my gosh. Poison oak, you can see it's similar. Also leaves a 3. Poison sumac, not quite the same thing.
Is that leaves a 5?
And then over here, do you know what this is?
Poison ivy.
That's right, it's just dormant. So in the wintertime, poison ivy looks like this. So poison ivy, when it goes dormant in the winter, looks like this. It can still cause a rash though. So if you see this, you still don't want to touch it. Even though it's dead, it still has oils, which can, yeah. So, yeah, oh gosh, no. Now, poison ivy does not get in your palms though. You don't get a rash on your palms, but you can definitely spread the oil from your palms to other places in your body. Not everybody gets poison ivy rashes. Some people are immune to poison ivy. So it's not guaranteed that you do get a rash with it, but it just depends. Eczema. is one kind of dermatitis. So eczema is a very common disease. Usually you grow out of it. Usually it's more of a childhood disease that you grow out of as you get older. But adults can get it too. Adults, so it's not just childhood disease, but generally, a lot of people do grow out of it as they get older.
You get eczema when you have vertigo or not?
It can be triggered by vertigo, I suppose. Do you,
Well, my mom had that from that.
so
Yeah,
when,
some skin thing that pops up.
when she has vertigo, she has eczema too?
I don't know, to be honest, but I thought she had like some of these spots or things.
Interesting. I haven't heard about the link between vertigo and eczema. Certainly possible. Because eczema can be caused by stress, and vertigo, if you have that, you can definitely feel distressed. So I don't know if there's any correlation between that and like how she's feeling. Well, it can be.
I mean, I could be wrong with that.
Well, if you hear, let me know, because I'm interested in hear like what causes that. But I mean, eczema has different triggers, and it could be that the same trigger that triggers her vertigo triggers her eczema too. Yes.
Can the weather affect eczema?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the weather is a big effect in eczema.
I
hum-
only get like right before summer starts.
Hey,
Mhm.
your game.
Yeah, when it gets more humid,
Yeah.
that can trigger eczema. Temperature can trigger eczema. Lots of different things to trigger eczema. Pollen, soaps, hot water. So eczema can have red scaly areas like you see down here in this picture. It can be smaller bumps like you can see up here. Generally, you do see small rough bumps with eczema, but it can turn into thick leathery areas where it gets hardened. And usually it starts to leak. Usually it's going to be an open sore, and it can crust over, like you can see in this picture right here, it's starting to do. Lots of triggers for eczema. It can be allergens, things like dust, pollen, foods you're eating. It can be stress, humidity levels. Yes.
Are eczema and psoriasis related?
They're not. They look very similar. They're both very itchy conditions where you do have thickened skin in certain places, but they're not the same thing. Yeah,
But
they're.
I just meant like, are they at all related or are they two totally related?
I mean, they are related in the sense that they both have the same kind of triggers. Like psoriasis can be triggered by dry air. It can be triggered by, and the more you itch, the worse it gets. But psoriasis is an autoimmune disease where your body is attacking your skin. And so you get that because your body attacks itself. Eczema is an allergy. So they're caused by two different things.
Okay, because my mom has psoriasis, but then she like has cut out like all these foods, and for like the past year, it's gone away after she took out.
Yeah, autoimmune diseases can be triggered by certain foods you eat.
Okay,
So
okay.
your environment can trigger your autoimmune disease. So that can be, it's not exactly an allergy that she has, but it can be, it's very similar to an allergy in that sense. You can have certain triggers that if you remove the trigger, she won't get as bad of a reaction to it.
Oh,
Usually with eczema, if you keep lotion on your skin, it helps. Usually if it dries out, it gets worse. And so one treatment for eczema would be to make sure your skin doesn't dry out, that you use a special kind of lotion and gentle soaps and not very much hot water, because those can make it worse. Of course, if it's a certain allergy that triggers it, to remove the allergen from your environment, either stop eating certain kinds of foods, or have an air filter to remove the dust and pollen in your house. You have to find out what triggers it to really know how to treat it, though. But other times you can grow out of it. Babies, it's common with toddlers and infants, and they grow out of it as they get older. But others have it for life. Just depends. But it's intensely itchy. You just want to scratch and scratch and scratch with this, and that can just cause it to be worse as you scratch. Cold sores are caused by the herpes simplex virus. It's an infection of the lips, mouth, or gums. It's usually on the outside. It can move onto the inside of the mouth, but generally you're going to see it on the outside around the lips, like you see right here. Once you have an infection, it stays for life in your body. but usually it stays dormant. It only comes active usually when you're stressed. So most of the time it's you have it when you're a baby. Adults infect babies with it and that's passed on from them. So if adults didn't ever kiss babies, then we wouldn't ever have this passed on to people. But I mean, it's not a big deal at all. It's usually not going to be a common outbreak that you have. Usually just stays dormant in your body for life. Just every now and then you might get an outbreak of it. But it goes away very quickly too. Ice can help with it. There's different kinds of medicines you can take for it. So you can have triggers such as an infection, a fever, cold, or the flu, stress, sun exposure.
Wait, can you just get it like randomly? Because that
Mhm.
my brother gets it like all the time, but on the inside.
Oh, so that would probably not be a cold sore, it'd probably be a canker sore.
Oh,
Yeah, do they look like, really fast, do they look like that?
I don't know. Probably.
Oh, I guess it's their teeth, like-
Yeah, so it's not quite the same thing, but usually if it's inside your mouth, it's usually what it is
Oh, okay.
and not the same thing, but it could be. Immune system, if you have a weak immune system, you can have these more often. Trauma to the infected area, so if you bite your lip, for example, you have more common outbreak from that. So most everybody does have this infection in their body. It's just not something that you usually see active. Does everybody have this down? No, this one's not. No, but there are other ones that can be. When you hear the word herpes, that's what you usually think about. But there's different strains of this virus, and this one is not STD. This one is usually passed from adults to their children when they're babies by kissing the babies. But you can have an STD too, but that's not the same kind of virus at all. Yes.
You're right.
So HSV1, herpes simplex virus 1, is a cold sore. HSV2 is the STD. So they're in different places, they're caused by different things, and they're not the same thing at all. So a cold sore is not an STD. But it's also the herpes virus, but there's different strains of herpes viruses. And some are passed on in different ways. Just like warts, it's the same exact thing. Warts can be STDs, but they're not always STDs. And so a plantar wart on your foot, it's not an STD. That's usually caused by going to like a dirty gym, walking barefoot outside in the soil, things like that. Canker sores, they look like cold sores in the sense that they're right by your lip, but they're not the same thing. They're not contagious. They're a mouth ulcer, which means that it's usually going to make a pit in your lip. It's going to make a hollow area. They're not viral or bacterial. Nobody really knows what they are. We don't really know why they form, how they form. We know they're not contagious. We know we can't pass them on to other people. But what actually causes them, we're not sure.
Well, so for like us in our family, we'll get done if you bite like the inside of your mouth a little bit on accident. And then like I feel like sugar and acidic things really exacerbate them. Like anything sugar and anything like oranges and
That makes sense. Yeah.
And also if you put hydrogen peroxide on them.
That really helps. Yeah, it does. That's a really good, yeah.
It's like amazing. It numbs it and maybe it's like bad food.
No, that's good. I mean, it actually is a really good treatment for them. Triggers can be, depending upon the person, vitamin B deficiencies can cause these as well. Vitamin B12 deficiencies.
Where do you get that?
Where do you get vitamin B12?
Is that the fish oil?
Do what?
Which one, what is that?
Vitamin B12, you can get it in vegetables like spinach, any kind of green leaf vegetable. It can be local trauma, like Lathia's talking about, if you bite your lip, that can cause canker sores to form. Stress, hormonal influences, changes in hormones can affect them. Allergies, your genes. So a lot of different things can cause them, but again, like their primary cause, whether they're bacterial or viral or something else, we really don't know what's going on and why they form. But for a certain person, you can figure out why they form for you. Like if you eat corn chips, that might cause them, and you just realize every time I eat corn chips, maybe that's what causes them. Like you can determine a trigger for you on what might cause them, but person to person, it's different. So most appear on the non-keratinizing epithelial surfaces on the mouth. So non-keratinizing would be like the pink area right here. Keratin on your skin, the tough area in your skin, is the keratinizing area. Non-keratinizing would be your lip, inside your lip, where you don't have the keratin. So they usually form inside your mouth.
You just wait till it goes away.
Yeah, and hydrogen peroxide is a good treatment for it. So you can just swish it around your mouth for a little bit. And it helps go away faster. But usually in a day or two, they don't last for too long usually. They're just really annoying and painful, but they usually don't last for more than 2 days. So these are not cold sores. They look like cold sores, but cold sores are caused by a herpes virus. These are not caused by a virus or a bacterial infection. A keloid is basically a raised scar. It's an overgrown scar. And it's due to a buildup of collagen. Usually your body makes too much collagen protein in response to an injury. And so the injury itself could be a lot smaller, but after it heals, it can just keep on growing and growing and growing. And so this person might have had a very small cut, maybe this size right here, but it could just have grown up her face. So it doesn't mean that she could have definitely had a cut this large, but it doesn't mean she actually did. It can grow and spread.
Is this like genetic?
It can be. Usually African Americans have more keloids than other races do, and so it's probably due to your genes. If it runs to your family, you're more prone to keloids, but it's not always genes. Sometimes it just happens on its own. It depends upon where it is. So if you have a cut along your face or a place where you have movement a lot, you're more prone to keloids in those areas. So your face, your neck are more prone to keloids than a place like, say, your hand, where you're not going to have a lot of movement of your skin.
Have you read Mortal Engine?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, one of the main characters has like a massive scar across their face.
Mm.
So would that be a keloid?
If it's raised, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's a raised area, that'd be a keloid. And so usually they're kind of like a shiny, plastically kind of feeling to them. They can be dome shaped. They can be different colors. You can see that some can be light pink, dark pink, red. And that's due to the blood vessels that move up. And so usually we learned this before, that skin doesn't really have blood vessels, but a keloid brings vessels up to the surface, and that's why they look pink or red.
Wait, can't you have
So-
just regular scar that's raised?
But that'd be called a keloid if it's a raised scar, that's what we call it.
Gee, I mean,
So they can be more common if it's a deeper cut, if it's a cut that's not healed very quickly, if it's a ragged cut, you're more prone to keloids in those cases. It feels very hard and thick, and it's raised above the skin surface. So a scar would just be flat, a keloid would be raised. That's the difference between a scar and a keloid. These are not cancer. They're benign, they're not contagious, they're not due to an infection. It's just basically a scar that the body is growing out of control. And so they can keep on growing like cancer, but they're not cancerous because they're not going to metastasize and spread to your blood vessels.
how do you get rid of it?
They're very hard to treat. Surgery usually makes it worse. And so if you try to cut it out, you just grow back even larger and worse. So surgery is not a good option for keloids. For me, what I've done is have Cortisol injections, where basically they just take a needle and inject a fluid below your skin surface. It's very painful. The first time I had it, I felt like somebody had taken a knife and cut open my whole chest and put acid in my chest. And I was the worst pain in my life. I've had a lot of bad pains in my life, but it was by far the worst pain I've ever experienced, and I had to drive home. I couldn't, like, I literally could not walk because like the whole day I really felt like I had a knife like all the way through, and like it just like cut open my whole. So it was, no, I mean, they don't. I mean, they just, yeah. So, I mean, it was a bad reaction. And it's usually not that bad of a reaction, but the first time I had it done, it was really, really bad. But with repeat injections, it gets easier. It's not, yeah, I had to do it several times, which was, that was really tough. But the thing is that it hurts on its own. Like keloids give you sharp pains. Like it feels like somebody's stabbing you. Like just on its own, it feels that way. And so I still have bad pain even without the injections. So it feels like that, basically that somebody's taking like a scalpel and just like poking you. It's like these really like sharp pains that you get. And so, and it's also itchy. So it's painful and itchy. So it was like, it was worth, even though it was like really bad pain, it was worth it to have the bad pain for a day. So I wouldn't have bad pain for every day of my life, if that makes sense. So
There's enough injections like make the pain go?
it helps. I mean, I've had my keloids, I've had them for like 20 years now. And I still have burning and itching with them, even after all this time. So for me, I've done cortisol injections, probably done about 25 injections of those, at least.
Does it
I just had one the other day, actually. Does it hurt? I mean, it hurts. It hurts. I mean, basically what it feels like to me now is like somebody has just taken that and cut, like imagine like just having this cut out. Like that's basically how it feels like, which is a lot better than it used to feel. I mean, but that's how it feels.
Just put a needle like around it? Or
No, they stick a needle into the whole thing. Like basically they stick it in lengthwise. Like imagine a needle like going in like they go in like on this side and go all the way through to that side. And they just slowly put the fluid in like as they pull it back out. Yeah. So yeah, so it's really, they're very hard to treat. They're very painful. But that's one part of the treatment, but the other treatments too. So that is cortisol injections, but they also have a laser treatment that they do, which is not nearly as bad. It feels kind of like, you know, the dentist, have you ever had that where they do like a sandblaster on your teeth where like they just like, it's basically like really, I don't know, it's like water with like these little grains in them. And they just shoot your teeth with water with these little sand grains. It kind of feels like that on your skin. Basically, it just feels like that. Well, but they shoot water with these little grains in it. It's not just water.
Was it like that really
But-
uncomfortable, really cold, sharp, weird feel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. So this laser, it's just a very, very cold laser. And so it basically, it just freezes your skin. And so it feels kind of like you're like being shot with like little sand grains. So it's not a terrible feeling, but it caused really bad bruising. And so when I had this before, it looked like I had like, I don't know, like I like it. Yeah, it looked really bad. So that's really the only bad effect to it is that basically what they're doing is they're destroying your capillaries. They're destroying the blood vessels right here to make it less red.
Wait, what
And so-
happened to cause the scars?
Do what?
What happened to cause the scars?
I don't really know.
Oh, really?
I mean, the scapular probably is what caused them. That's what they're thinking. Jewelry, any kind of
Oh my gosh, I'm
metal.
afraid of wearing the scapular.
So most likely the scapular is what caused it. And so I don't wear a scapular ring because of that, because it would just make it worse if I were to wear it. But most likely that's why.
So just like tiny little scratches out of it?
Yeah, little scratches, like microscopic scratches I didn't even see. And just over time, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So jewelry, especially metal jewelry, especially can trigger it, but not always metal. It can be fabric too, because mine was fabric. It wasn't even a metal scapular. It's just, but even the fabric caused it.
Could you surgically replace them with stem cells?
Maybe someday. Yeah, at this point, we're not there yet. But maybe someday we will get to that point. So,
Well, most of them.
I mean, depending on. like,
yeah, but these would be your own cells. It wouldn't be embryonic, it'd be your own cells. So that would definitely be ethical. And so those are the two treatments I've used for them. And that's usually what they do is laser treatments and then cortisol injections. Surgery is like a last resort and usually it's not going to help. So
Can it shrink or not?
they can, I mean, not on their own usually. Usually you have to get treatment for them. On their own, they usually get bigger. But with treatment, they can shrink. Warts are small, rough growths. They can be commonly, you see them on your feet, on your fingers, those are on your knees. But they can be other places too. But those are the most common places you're going to see a wart. On your foot, you learned about this before. Plantar is your sole of your foot. So plantar wart is just the name of the location of the wart. So we'll stop here for today. Tomorrow we have mass, so it'll be a shortened class schedule. But we'll continue notes for tomorrow. There's no homework tonight. Yes.
Can you like, it's not gross, but like, can you cut out more?
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, doctors will do it for you. You can do it at home but I mean, that can cause an infection if you don't do it properly. But it depends, not always. If you get the whole thing out, they don't. But if you don't get the whole thing out, they can. Okay, the bell should have rang. I don't know, but you can go ahead and I know. But you can go and pack up your things if you want.